Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana. Radio show. The medical marijuana for you and me. Ah, yeah, the medical marijuana. Whoa, 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 yeah, the medical. It's the medical marijuana show. You will know.
I want to talk to you.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome once again to another episode of Medical Marijuana Radio. I'm your host, Larry Love. We're here every week, every Saturday night with a new show to bring you the latest information on medical and recreational use of cannabis for adults from all over the globe. This week, we have Miss Teddi, a New Mexico patient who has been using raw canna juice. She's been juicing and getting great results. So we'll have a little interview with her perspective on how raw canna juice has been helping her. But as usual, we always have some good news for you, some local and some pertaining to everybody. So got news for you. 1, 2, 3. And first up, this is from Fibromyalgia News Today. Fibromyalgia is a disease that many people have. It's an affliction, lots of pain and so forth. And it says that fibromyalgia patients may someday see a THC patch for treatment. A new treatment is being studied for fibromyalgia that delivers medication through a skin patch. The drug candidate is called ZYN001 and is under development by Zynerba Pharmaceuticals based in Devon, Pennsylvania. ZYN001 contains a prodrug medication that the body converts to THC, the active ingredient in marijuana. Fibromyalgia is a painful disorder that healthcare providers have sometimes failed to recognize as an actual medical condition. Characterized by extreme fatigue and chronic pain, often in localized body regions, fibromyalgia can be hard to distinguish from conditions like arthritis. An estimated 5.6 million individuals in the United States suffer from fibromyalgia. Once oral medications are absorbed by the gastrointestinal system, they can be present in variable levels in the blood and may be broken down to some extent in the liver. This is called first-pass metabolism. Skin transdermal patches could potentially bypass some of these problems. According to Zynerba Pharmaceuticals, because ZYN001 comes in a patch form, it may supply the drug in a more consistent manner than an oral medication. This could allow for fewer psychological effects that are normally associated with THC, since the patch formulation does not permit a peak blood level of THC. So far, Zynerba has investigated ZYN001 in animal models, as reported on their website. The studies examine the use of subcutaneous medication in rats to assess the blood levels of the medication and to examine safety and respiratory symptoms. In a rat pharmacokinetic, that's blood level, thank you, researchers noted that ZYN001 crossed the blood-brain barrier more easily than THC, and low levels of plasma may reduce the likelihood that patients will experience treatment-emergent psychotropic effects. The blood level effects will need to be evaluated further in human studies. Many physicians are reluctant to recognize or manage fibromyalgia, which has only recently been recognized by the medical community. New, effective, and safe methods for relieving fibromyalgia are needed. The ZYN001 patch may add to the possible treatments for fibromyalgia, but there are downsides to dermal medications. And what are they? Okay, including skin reactions at the patch site, stigma associated with wearing a patch, and delayed onset of medication delivery compared to oral medications. ZYN001 is also under study for neuropathic pain, which refers to pain from nerve or central nervous damage. Again, if you would like to relook at this article, it's from fibromyalgianewstoday.com. Next up, I have another article. This is from leafscience.com, which is a great resource. Marijuana withdrawal, myth or reality? One of the most common questions surrounding marijuana is whether using it can lead to addiction and withdrawal. Many regular users argue that cannabis is not addictive. Others think it is possible to be addictive to almost anything psychologically, and in the case of marijuana, they're right. Well, at least so far. This is quoting. Psychological or behavioral addiction is defined as loss of control over use. Well, that makes sense. Says Dr. David Gorlick, a professor of psychiatry at the University of Maryland School of Medicine, who has conducted a number of studies on cannabis withdrawal. But frequent users of marijuana aren't only at risk of psychological addiction. That's because the active ingredients in marijuana act on specific sites known as cannabinoid receptors, which control the body both physically and psychologically. The addiction of cannabinoids on these receptors changes their state. Simply put, it's a biological system that responds to cannabis use, explains Dr. David Alsop, an associate professor at the University of Sydney, who has also studied cannabis withdrawal in great depth. When cannabis use is stopped, the receptors have to adjust to normal levels. This has psychological and physical effects, Dr. Alsop says, which can lead to both addiction and withdrawal. Symptoms of withdrawal. According to a 2011 study co-authored by Dr. Alsop, symptoms of cannabis withdrawal include nightmares, strange dreams, angry outbursts, and trouble sleeping. Along with psychological symptoms, users trying to quit may also experience physical symptoms. A minority of individuals who experience cannabis withdrawal, about 10%, experience physical symptoms such as muscle aches, muscle twitches, and GI upset such as nausea or vomiting, Dr. Gorlick says. Cannabis withdrawal seems to occur only in chronic frequent users, meaning those who use at least once weekly. Once weekly? Dr. Gorlick said? That's a chronic user once weekly? Okay, I don't know who he was studying. Anyway, people who use cannabis more frequently are more likely to develop a severe dependency, which can lead to a more intensive withdrawal. The withdrawal period typically lasts around 1 week, but varies per user. Studies on cannabis withdrawal, a 2010 study co-authored by Dr. Gorlick, found that 42% of users who had tried to quit cannabis experienced symptoms of withdrawal. What's more, 70% of these individuals relapsed in an attempt to relieve their withdrawal symptoms. One reason why marijuana withdrawal is so highly debated is because it wasn't identified as a medical term until fairly recently. But after many studies proved that the syndrome's clinical significance, cannabis withdrawal has finally recognized in the 5th version of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders in 2013. Let's see what else they have here for this. The American Psychiatric Association, the APA, which, by the way, is generally against us anyway, so you have to watch what they say. They seem to be against cannabis for a long time now. So the American Psychiatric Association says cannabis withdrawal is caused by use that has been heavy and prolonged and is characterized by at least 3 of the following symptoms. And here they are: irritability, anger, nervousness, sleep difficulty, decreased appetite, restlessness, depressed mood, and physical symptoms such as stomach pain, shakiness, increased sweating, fever, and or headaches. So that is this article, which is from leafscience.com. If using THC-based medicine, use sparingly, only as needed, minimize the dose, and have significant breaks during the treatment if possible, says Dr. Alsop. And again, these guys are psychiatrists, and they've been against us. So my recommendation for cannabis withdrawal, since cannabis can't really hurt you that much, is try more cannabis. Anyway, that's just my little thing. We've got more news for you locally here in New Mexico. One of our local Albuquerque dispensaries had a little break-in, and this is a report from Albuquerque on that.
Only on 4, a bad guy caught on camera breaking into a local medical marijuana clinic, of all places.
Yeah, and this comes just a week after the state made the names and the locations of those clinics public.
The 4 Investigates team, Ryan Luby, is asking if this break-in is mere coincidence or maybe something more. Brian.
Well, Tessa, it depends on who you ask, because remember, medical marijuana dispensaries have been burglarized before. We've reported on them long before the transparency rules went into effect last week. But based on what we see tonight and who it involves, it's clear that medical marijuana security absolutely has to be a top concern.
Is that turning?
This is about the time any business owner would cringe. This time it's Will Ford. He manages R Greenleaf Organics, which operates this medical marijuana clinic near Coors and 40.
We had an invasion.
This break-in captured on surveillance Saturday night around 10:30. Whoever it was decided to roll up on their bicycle, break through seriously thick double-pane glass, and crawl inside. They looked around, couldn't find any medical cannabis, if that's what they wanted. Instead, went for the glassware before trying to casually crawl back outside where an armed security team had just rolled up.
But that's when the ART officer confronts him, tells him to stop. You can see him. And then out the back door he goes.
Coincidentally, just a day before this break-in, Ford says would-be burglars triggered an alarm at his big warehouse in southeast Albuquerque, too. That's where his employees grow their medical cannabis, nearly 20 pounds per week. All of their burglar headaches now, their first ever, come just 1 week after the state publicized the names and locations of nonprofit medical marijuana producers all across New Mexico.
I'd say the timing is ironic. It's strange that it happened the following weekend.
Ford says he absolutely supports the added transparency regardless of the crime concern. He says it tests their safety plans.
Is to have a low exposure level, to have a small amount of cannabis, to have a small amount of cash on hand.
And he says it reminds his employees that it's not a matter of if, but when.
Now, Ford says APD officers compiled the report. It's tough to see the face of the guy who committed this crime, but chances are someone knows who he is and what he did. Let's just hope they do the right thing and turn him in.
So, again, transparency is something that Peter St. Cyr and the organization FOG have been trying to get here in New Mexico for our medical cannabis program, because everything was kept so secret. We didn't know, who was involved in these nonprofit licensed producers who grow our medicine and so forth. Everything's been kept so secret. But these names of the 25 or 30 dispensaries that we have now, a lot of them all in Albuquerque, have been known to 21,000 patients for. When you get your card, you get a list of the dispensaries. So it's not like these things, the dispensaries themselves weren't secret addresses or anything, but obviously the grow ops and so forth, those operations are secret. And, it's nice to have the transparency and know where these places are. Just, if you're in the neighborhood, you'd like to know who's extracting things around your neighborhood, who's growing and so forth. But obviously security really worked well this time in the R Greenleaf dispensary, and obviously if they had some kind of an alarm go off at their grow, that place is like Fort Knox. And so I commend R Greenleaf for having great security, and I hope that all the other LNPPs are up to that standard. Now, also one of the licensed producers who came in from Arizona and got involved with one of the Santa Fe licensed nonprofits and sort of took it over. We've had them on before, Ultra Health. They're opening up a dispensary inside I guess you could call it like a hippie head shop down in Albuquerque called Birdland. And here's this report, and I'll have some comments afterwards.
Perfect match.
Jay Steinberg couldn't be happier.
I have advocated cannabis culture out of the store for 22 years.
His store with the colorful Volkswagen bus in the window.
I always felt that it was a signature hippie vehicle.
Will now be a place packed with a different kind of product. But don't call it marijuana or weed.
That's not what this is. This is medical grade cannabis at the highest level is what it is.
Supplier Leonard Sagalo says they'll have up to 20 different kinds of this high-quality cannabis.
Candies and candy bars and all of those other edible products that we offer our patients.
And it'll operate
just like CVS or Walgreens.
Except that only patients will be allowed in the area where the cannabis is sold. We got an exclusive look.
Once the patient is here, they'll just go right up to the counter and they're able to look at the medicine and get an idea of which particular medicine is going to work best for their given condition.
This was a product I knew had all the attributes to help people and help our state at the same time.
So I don't know what the procedure is. That's another thing that the transparency that we're now starting to get in the medical cannabis program here in New Mexico. I don't know what the procedure is on when a licensed producer is opening up a new location. They're sort of allowing all the current licensed producers to open up all kinds of locations even after the new licensees haven't even gotten started yet. There's sort of a land grab in Nob Hill and all over Albuquerque. But there must be some kind of a process that the DOH, Department of Health, who runs the medical cannabis program, has to go through in order to allow an LNPP to open up a new location. Now, that being said, look, I've met Jay Steinberg. He's a really nice guy from New York, but the medical cannabis program here in New Mexico is medical. We do not have recreation. So I believe that the image of the Lynn and Aaron Compassionate Use Act and the medical cannabis program here in New Mexico is really being degraded by opening up a medical cannabis dispensary inside a hippie head shop. Legalization did not happen this year. Maybe it'll happen again, but as long as we have our Republican governor, it's probably not going to happen. It seems to get turned down by the legislature every year by a few votes. And it's just, I'm against what they're doing as far as Ultra Health opening up in the hippie shop. Nothing personal, Jay. My beef is obviously with the way Ultra Health came in and got a license that's non-transferable. I would love to find out how that transaction came down. So let's see what happens. People in New Mexico and people in other states, do you feel that a hippie head shop is a place for medical cannabis? I don't. Next up, in Utah, they were getting close to having some kind of a medical cannabis program there, but in the final hours of the legislative session, it's getting stalled. Here is this report from Utah.
In the final days of the session, representatives held last-minute meetings to try to get an understanding of a medical marijuana bill that was undergoing numerous revisions. In the late afternoon on the last day, House sponsor Brad Dodd told KUER there wasn't funding to cover the startup costs of the program. Republican Mark Madsen was the Senate sponsor of a competing medical marijuana proposal. He insists that Dodd's bill exists solely to kill his bill, which would have provided much broader access to the marijuana plant.
I do think it's curious. If they had ever been serious about actually having this bill pass, why is it that the last day of the session is the first day they worry about funding?
Daw says lawmakers made so many last-minute changes to his bill that they didn't know about the funding issue.
This was not meant to kill Matt's bill. This was meant as a genuine attempt to make what I consider to be a reasonable policy. We very much wanted this bill to pass.
It's political games for him.
That's Christine Stanquist, one of the major advocates on the Hill for medical marijuana. Stanquist says Daw did not consult patients when he crafted his bill. She's laying on a couch in Senator Madsen's office with a blanket draped over her legs and sunglasses on to shield her eyes. Stanquist has a brain tumor and is suffering from a migraine.
Pain waves come, just gets a little too high, a little too intense, no pun intended, but
Stanquist says time has run out to gather signatures for a ballot initiative on medical marijuana for this year, but they will hold on to the option for the next election.
If we don't have that ballot measure there, we won't actually discuss this. We'll try to kick it down the road. We have to talk about this.
Stanquist's biggest champion, Senator Madsen, is retiring this year, but she's holding out hope that lawmakers will make a good faith effort to listen to patients and pass a medical marijuana bill in the next year. Andrea Smartin, KUER News.
So other states also besides Utah are having problems getting medical cannabis programs going. Everybody seems to think that CBD only, which is one of the problems with Utah, and Florida is progression, but in progress and so forth. But it really isn't, because it's really holding back many, many patients. So this next report is from Florida. Medical marijuana bill will not help most of Florida's patients.
New at 5, terminally ill patients who want to give medical marijuana a try are now waiting to see what the governor decides. A bill expanding medical marijuana's use in Florida passed the legislature. Now, Governor Rick Scott can either sign it, veto it, or let it go into law without his signature. Whatever he decides, the bill won't do anything to help sick patients who say they need it now. Fox 13's Kelly Cowan talked to a Bay Area mom who's breaking the law to give her child relief from chemotherapy.
On the surface, Dahlia Barnhart looks like any other 5-year-old. Playful and perhaps a bit precocious, her bubbly personality belies the war waging inside her. 3 years ago, Dahlia was diagnosed with an aggressive brain tumor. Multiple surgeries and rounds of chemo quickly took a toll on her tiny body.
She was losing weight, had atrophy of her legs. She was just in awful shape. But more than all of that was that she was in pain every second of every day, and there was nothing we could do to help her.
Not legally, at least. Though Mariah said her daughter was prescribed numerous powerful opiate medications, including morphine and fentanyl to help manage the pain, she says nothing worked for Dahlia until they tried cannabis oil.
The change that I saw in Dahlia was literally immediate. The very first day that I gave it to her, she slept through the night for the first time in her entire life.
Mariah says it worked so well that despite the cancer, she feels like a normal kid. Now, Mariah is an advocate for other children. In 2014, she and several mothers of severely ill children formed CannaMoms, a group of parents pushing for legalized medical marijuana. Dahlia firmly believes she's doing the right thing for her child, even if it's breaking the law.
After diagnosis, we spend most of our nights watching our children breathe to make sure that they're still alive. And the rest of the time looking out the window to make sure a SWAT team's not coming to our house.
A new medical marijuana bill is waiting to be signed into law by Governor Rick Scott, but would only grant access to medical marijuana for terminally ill patients. And considering the lack of action on previously passed compassionate care legislation, Mariah believes it may be a while before she can legally provide her child with relief.
Having to fight politicians and bad laws while fighting for our child's life at the same time is the most inhumane, unjust thing.
In Tampa, Kelly Cowan, Fox 13 News.
Mariah says her daughter's doctors are aware of her use of cannabis oil, and we did reach out to her oncologist at All Children's Hospital. The doctor tells us that hospital policy states more research needs to be done on cannabinoids in order to determine correct dosing and their safety for children.
Some of these doctors just need to look in the waiting room and see the results of these people. Why make people wait? Why pass a law and then a year later people are suffering? Get these things going. It's not just about CBD. It's about the entourage effect. It's about THC killing cancer cells. Why should these children have to suffer? Why does this woman have to break the law to give her daughter the best medicine that is possible. We need federalized medical cannabis immediately. People shouldn't have to move from state to another state. Going around the states, Virginia lawmakers pass a landmark medical marijuana bill.
It's being hailed as an enormous step for the Commonwealth. Lawmakers unanimously approve a medical marijuana bill here in Virginia.
But tonight, some are already slamming the bill. On your side, Chris Thomas is live with reactions from both sides. Chris?
Well, Drew, both sides agree this bill is a big deal, but some say it doesn't go far enough, and some are even claiming discrimination.
This is a landmark victory.
Senate Bill 701 just passed the Virginia General Assembly, allowing pharmaceutical processors to manufacture and provide cannabis oil here in Virginia.
There have been years of blood, sweat, and tears that we've poured into achieving these very minor reforms.
You see, the bill only applies to certain types of epilepsy patients suffering from multiple seizures. Cannabis oil reportedly helps reduce those seizures by 45%. As for cancer patients, you call it medical discrimination.
It is a type of medical discrimination. Why is a child dying from cancer less important than a child suffering from intractable epilepsy?
Now keep in mind, even with this bill, marijuana is still illegal at the federal and state level, but manufacturers and families will get a certificate. And I want to read it to you here from the doctor or board of health that gives you a, quote, affirmative defense for having the cannabis oil.
And let me tell you something, the greatest allies I had in this were the families of these kids. They were relentless, they were positive, they were telling their story to people.
But these families will have to wait at least a year to see the benefits while the Board of Pharmacy creates regulations for the product.
Fact is that this is a southern state, it's a conservative state, but we're on the way. We've made some progress here. It's going to help children, it's going to help families.
Jen Michelle Padini with Cannabis Commonwealth says the fight continues to remove the restrictions on who gets the medical marijuana.
Next year, we will absolutely have more patients be visible in the General Assembly. These are healthcare decisions that deserve the attention of a physician, not a lawmaker.
Now, the earliest this bill could take effect is next July 1st. Next year, that is. We're told lawmakers still have to sign off on those regulations. For now, on your side in Richmond, Chris Thomas, NBC 12 News.
Meanwhile, people continue to suffer, kids continue to suffer, and it's all because of the scheduling that the federal government has on cannabis, because we cannot, when I say we, the United States, cannot do research because it's a Schedule 1. Schedule 2 it would allow research, but it still has so many restrictions that it really doesn't make sense to be Schedule 2. Here's a report about the federal ban on medical cannabis research.
PTSD, MS, glaucoma, seizures. All of these diseases have seen beneficial impacts with medical marijuana. It's outrageous that the federal government is saying there's no medical use. And until they move from Schedule 1, they are literally saying that.
Help the average person understand the difference between a Schedule 1 drug and a Schedule 2 drug.
Well, it's really simple. Schedule 1 drug has no medical use, and a Schedule 2 drug has medical uses.
Marijuana does not meet the definition of Schedule 2, and you can create those products, and we should do that.
Clearly, Schedule 2 is easier to access.
It's a small difference.
Well, then why are you resisting that difference then?
To deny people medicine that can help them based upon some idea that this might create a problem or a slippery slope, that undermines the common sense of things we already are doing.
It's stuck in the 60s. People wanted to demonize this as a hippie drug that had no value and not actually study it.
Have you written to the president or asked
Yes,
the
they'll
president?
say there's not a body of research that shows the medical effects in U.S. literature.
Legalizing marijuana, whether it's medical marijuana or recreational use. Right now, that is not federal policy.
Well, surprise, surprise, it's a Schedule 1 drug. Of course there's not a body of research because you've precluded that research from being done. It's a catch-22.
So that pretty much explains that. Next, we have a few stories of celebrity comments about cannabis. So first up, Joe Rogan, a comedian and activist for cannabis, always has something very interesting to say. And here is this by Joe Rogan.
Legal versus illegal
Really shocking. 50% of federal inmates right now are incarcerated for drug-related charges, yet drug abuse in the country is at an all-time high. Why has the war on drugs been such an abysmal failure?
Well, first of all, it's not really a war on drugs. It's a war on some drugs. And the drugs that are government sanctioned and they're taxing them, those are not illegal. Alcohol is available almost everywhere you look. It's one of the worst drugs we have. As far as the consequences of using it, it's one of the most screwed up drugs available to people, and it's everywhere. We just sort of understand that one shot of Jack Daniels has this effect, one beer has that effect, and it's because of the fact that it's pretty strictly regulated, and it's part of our culture and has been for a long time. We've just accepted the fact that this drug is at every restaurant you go to, is at every supermarket you go to, is in drugstores. It's everywhere. I mean, it's amazing. And there's nothing wrong with alcohol. Don't get me wrong. I'm 100% down with you being able to do whatever you want to do with your body. But we're incredibly inconsistent. The amount of prescription drugs that are prescribed in this country points to that. The amount of people in this country that are hooked on meth, the amount of people in this country that are hooked on pharmaceutical drugs. These are huge, huge numbers. And then there's drugs like marijuana, which literally hurt almost no one. And my point of view has always been, if marijuana turns your life into a loser, it's just because marijuana got there first. Like, you really had issues. If pot is what does you in, I mean, it could have been anything. It could have been gambling, cheeseburgers, scratch tickets, masturbation. You might just be a crazy person. I don't really believe that marijuana is a bad thing. I think marijuana is a tool, and it can be used like any other tool, like a hammer. You can build a house with it, or you can hit yourself in the privates if you're crazy. You can do whatever you want. And it doesn't mean that we should get rid of hammers, and it doesn't mean we should get rid of pot either. I think for a lot of people, pot is incredibly beneficial. It's incredibly beneficial medically. It's incredibly beneficial for people's personalities. It helps them relax and unwind and be a little bit more sensitive and be a little kinder to each other. It makes sex feel better. It makes food taste better. It's an incredible plant. It's an alien plant. It's not unlike any other plant that exists on this planet as far as the amount of good that you get from one thing. You can make buildings with it. The food, you can make food out of it. It's hemp seed. The hemp seed has amino acids in it, incredibly healthy for you. It's high in protein. I mean, it's amazing the different things that marijuana is capable of.
And we're still discovering more and more all the time about what cannabis can do. Now, moving on to our next celebrity talk, we have Larry King talking with Morgan Freeman about marijuana.
One of your fans wanted to ask about your love of marijuana, and another wants to know your favorite strain.
I'm not that much of a connoisseur, so I don't know what strains are. If you have some good smoke, try this. Yeah.
You think it's going to be legal everywhere?
Yeah, I do.
It ought to be.
Yeah, it has to be. You know, they can't continue to say that it's a dangerous drug when it's safer than alcohol.
It's a lot safer.
Yeah.
So, you know, the more prominent people come out and talk about how safe cannabis is and how, you know, much better than alcohol, that really makes sense. That's a point that is so well taken, because alcohol has taken millions of lives. Cannabis, well, they haven't even started counting yet, because there hasn't been anybody. Stephen Colbert from the Late Show knows one thing that Bernie Sanders is lying about. Check this out.
Hey, I'd like to do a quick check-in with the audience right now. I do this every so often. It's a quick poll about presidential candidates. Is anybody here feeling the burn? Okay. Yep. Thank you. Thank you. That's fine. Thank you. I have my sample size. Thank you very much. Well, brace yourself. I've got some shocking news. Because yesterday, during a rally in Michigan, Senator Sanders dropped a bombshell about burning down.
I've done marijuana twice in my life when I was very young.
Because he smoked pot? He only smoked twice. I don't think this admission is on brand for Bernie. Senator, you do know who your supporters are. I will tell you this much. They have smoked marijuana twice since I started this sentence. I, for one, am shocked by Bernie's admission. Remember when he dropped this track on us?
As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me...
He recorded a reggae cover of a socialist anthem and expects us to believe he only smoked pot twice. Was one of those times for 10 years, Senator? The only reason I could think of that the senator from the People's Republic of Vermont has only sparked up twice is that maybe Bernie thought it clashed with his political beliefs. If we pass the Dutchie on the left-hand side, the bottom 10% of the people on the right are getting 80% less Dutchie than the elite 1% on the left-hand side. I promise in my administration there will be equal redistribution of the Dutchie.
So Bernie Sanders has said that he is for legalization. He is for medical cannabis. Hillary is for dropping it to a Schedule 2 so that we could research it more. Like, we really need to research it more. There's so much out there from Canada, Spain, Netherlands, Israel. Israel, come on. Get with it, people. Not you guys, you know, the people that are against us. Anyway, we're going to be right back after this to talk to Miss Teddi about her experience with juicing raw cannabis.
It's all about the 420 MMJRadio.
I'm Robert Platshorn with Marijuana Facts from the Silver Tour. Data from the National Highway Safety Administration shows that states with medical marijuana averaged a 10% drop in traffic fatalities. According to ForInsuranceQuote.com, marijuana users can expect a lower insurance rate than non-users. Learn more and support more education at thesilvertour.org. That's thesilvertour.org.
Have you ever had a problem with overcooking your cannabis oil? You probably wanted to rip your hair out when you burned off all the THC, right? I even cried one time when my brownies failed to make a good impression at the party. Well, I stopped crying when I found Magical Butter. Magical Butter is a device with a microprocessor-controlled program sequencer. It was designed by a scientist and a chemist to precisely extract the benefits of various herbs. Magical Butter easily makes botanical butter, oils, tinctures, lotions, sauces, and more. Magical Butter heats your oil and your herbs at the perfect temperature every time. Check us out at magicalbutter.com because it's magical. Okay, there's a lot of science and chemistry involved, but it sure works like magic.
Again, for your tinctures, butter, and oils, that's magicalbutter.com. This is a great appliance. Use coupon code LOVE to get $20 off.
I'm Robert Platshorn with Marijuana Facts from the Silver Tour. Data from the National Highway Safety Administration shows that states with medical marijuana averaged a 10% drop in traffic fatalities. According to ForInsuranceQuote.com, marijuana users can expect a lower insurance rate than non-users. Learn more and support more education at thesilvertour.org. That's thesilvertour.org.
Hi, as you know, over the next few years, the cannabis industry is going to explode into a multi-million-dollar industry. 420webdesign.com is your affordable design provider. 420 Web Design prides themselves on fair prices and a grounded staff. They listen to their ganjapreneurs' website needs. Getting into the marijuana industry doesn't need to break your bank. Our sites come with tons of features. Just a few of them include responsive designs for mobile viewers, easy to update platforms, built-in SEO and SMO tools, enterprise-level security, video tutorials, database backups, Google Maps, onboard analytics, and much more. This is backed by a decade of website design and development experience. For all of your 420 web design needs, go to 420webdesign.com. Again, 420webdesign.com. Check them out.
In 1973, under President Nixon, the federal government set up 5 drug classifications based on risk, Schedule 1 being the most dangerous. What is considered a Schedule 1 drug? Marijuana, LSD, and heroin. What is a Schedule 2 drug? Cocaine. What is a Schedule 3 drug? Anabolic steroids. What is a Schedule 4 drug? Valium. Schedule 5 drugs are considered the least risky. What is considered the least risky drug? Cough preparations with less than 200 milligrams of codeine. And what drugs are not scheduled at all? Alcohol and cigarettes. Why does the federal government consider tobacco and alcohol a low risk and marijuana a high risk? If you answered, "I don't know," you answered right. We don't know either. End prohibition now.
The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana. Radio show.
Hey, this is Scott from Rare Dankness. You're listening to Medical Marijuana Radio.
And we're back. And online today, I have Miss Teddi, who is a New Mexico medical cannabis patient. And we're going to talk about how using raw cannabis, eating and juicing it, is helping her. Welcome to Medical Marijuana Radio, Teddi.
Well, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So tell me, how long have you been in the medical cannabis program? And before you started using raw cannabis, what were you doing and how is that affecting your condition?
Well, I've been in the medical cannabis for 2 years, and I started juicing right away because my husband got his PPL. And before I started juicing, I was on blood pressure medicine. I was constantly having blood sugar spikes, bulk fiber. Everything was just out of whack. And I started doing research and started juicing, and I'm off of blood pressure medicine. I no longer take insulin. I don't have the blood sugar spikes. Everything's just working great. I've lost over 100 pounds.
Wow.
I've gone down from 23 pharmaceuticals to 8.
Oh, fantastic.
So far.
That's really incredible. How often do you take it? What is like a dose? Give me your daily routine at this point.
Well, usually the only way I can get the raw cannabis now is I go to the Verdes Foundation because they give out the cannabis cubes. And they recommend you do 1 cube in the morning and 1 cube at night. Now, when I had the leafy matter, I would do about a cup of leaves to about a half a cup of water in the blender.
Okay, let's talk about that. So when you had your PPL, you were keeping everything in veg? Are you juicing just vegetative leaves, or do you also juice leaves and plants that are flowering?
Well, I do when there's a certain time that you can do it because of the nutrients that you feed the plants. After you flush the plants, you can use the leaf matter and the flower.
Okay, but
either way.
And what's the difference between when they're in vegetative state as opposed to when they're flowering? Does it help you or one way better than the other?
Well, yeah, the vegetative state is better because when it's flowering, the flowers take a lot of the nutrients out of the leaves. So it's better to get it when it's in the vegetative state.
Do you have any idea what the oxalate levels are in eating?
I believe it's like 100 milligrams a day.
Okay, well, maybe we misunderstood my question.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. You're taking 100 milligrams a day?
Yes.
Okay, so how much leaf matter when you're using vegetative plants do you have to, juice and put in your blender or your juicer to get 100 milligrams total for that day?
About a cup with a half a cup of water.
cup with a half a cup of water. Do you
Yes.
and you just grind it that way by itself?
Yes.
Okay, and you don't add it to any other kind of juice. You just drink it down.
Oh, well, no, I incorporate it with all different kinds of juicing. I even have incorporated the raw plant matter into, I make raw cannabis sushi and raw cannabis dip along with a bunch of different drinks.
Okay, so the question is obviously, do you feel any euphoria? Does it give you any physical or mental feeling, or is it just really you're getting what's in there, the cannabinoids in its acid form?
Oh yeah, you don't have a euphoric feeling at all.
Mm-hmm. You notice no difference when using it that way?
No, not at all. I do notice that I have to take less flour for the chronic pain because the fresh has the endocannabinoids, which work well with your endocannabinoid system. So I don't have to vape as much flour now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
so, go ahead.
Is vaping your way of using it, in that form, or do you also
Yes.
use joints or anything else?
Well, every once in a while I'll get a pre-roll, but no, I usually vape.
Uh-huh. Any special kind of vaporizer you like?
No. There's like 2 or 3 that I use, and one is the Genie.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one, but so you probably have one for home and one that you need to take out with you if you're on, going out or something. So, so vaping, obviously, you do get a mental, a cerebral high from something like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, if you're going to drink 100 milligrams a day, how many is that broken up into 4 doses?
No, it would be broken up into 2.
Just 2. Okay.
Half in the morning, half at night.
Okay. Does it affect your sleep in any way?
Not at all. It actually helps me sleep better because I have more energy during the day. I do a lot more moving around, so I get better sleep at night.
Right. So let's say you're vegging your plants. You see, I really don't know a lot about the juicing. I just read about how great it is, and that's like remarkable results that people are getting from it. So at what point when you're vegging a plant, how tall can you start taking leaves, and how many leaves is in a cup, would you say?
If they're the big fan leaves, you would take about 20. 20 of the leaves.
And so are you growing those plants just for juicing, so they're always in veg, or do you flower them out eventually?
Well, some of them I would try to keep in veg, but unfortunately I can't grow anymore because DOH has changed the PPL laws.
All right, let's talk about that for a second, because that is one of the real problems with the new rules that they put into effect in February, and that is you have to get your landlord's permission in order to grow, and that seems like a HIPAA violation and all kinds of stuff. So what happened? You had your PPL before the new rule, and did you go to apply, and tell me your experience?
Well, we live in an apartment, and when we talked to the owners, they had no problem giving a verbal. And then when they changed the law and we went to get our PPL again, they said they wouldn't give written permission because they didn't want to be responsible.
Well,
and
I understand that, and that's just terrible, and that's the real problem that the New Mexico new rules have. It's discriminating, and it doesn't make sense. Now, does a landlord have the right to maybe not want you growing there? Legally, I don't know the answer to that. But years ago, up until this past year, there was a property forfeiture by the federal government with people that were growing marijuana, but that's changed now. They said if you're a legal medical marijuana patient in your state, that the property forfeiture is gone. So maybe you're landlords don't know that. Are they aware that they can't lose their property because you're growing there legally?
You know, there are so many people that are naive about any of the laws. They're just not willing to open up and learn.
Mm-hmm.
And when you bring it up, they want to just close the door.
So you asked your landlord if, I've been growing here for X amount of whatever years it was, and now they just want your signature down at the DOH, and they just shied back at that?
Yes.
Wow.
When you mention the Department of Health, they think it's, oh, we can't have anybody coming and checking out all the apartments.
Ah, they're worried about some violations.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad because basically I feel all the DOH did was create a whole slew of closet growers.
Yeah, well, it all started in the closet anyway.
Yeah, right.
But I mean, it really is discriminating, and it's very sad because for someone like you that needs the juice, you really have to be growing and vegging. It's very hard to get raw cannabis at dispensaries. Now, Verity's Foundation, here in New Mexico, is just commendable that they're able to turn out raw cannabis for people. So if you, how much is it, by the way?
Oh, they give it away free.
Oh, wow. Well, that's fabulous. And so obviously you being a customer of theirs, do they save you some every day, or can you buy enough for, or not buy, but can they give you enough for a week? Do they have enough of that to go around?
Well, they try, but unfortunately I've been pushing the juicing. They seem to run out very quick.
Yeah. Well, that's the sad part of this thing. It's really a shame that the DOH has done that. But they arbitrarily make up rules or that just mean nothing, and it's just not like it was when this program started. Okay, the federal government now allows us to have programs in our states, whether it's for medical cannabis or for recreational. They're not doing property forfeiture. It's changed. So the rules and the laws in the states need to change. As it opens up in the public, we need to make it less restrictive. But it seems that the medical programs are getting more restrictive, even though they're having recreational possibly in the same state, like Colorado and Washington, and even Oregon. The medical programs are now starting to suffer with the legalization in the same state. So we have to watch out for that. What else can you tell us about the raw? Do you know a list of conditions that it's really great for?
Oh, it contains anti-inflammatory, so it's good for inflammation. It helps with fibromyalgia. It helps with neuropathy, your digestive system. It has helped with my hormonal issues because I had a complete hysterectomy, and they put me on Primera, which can cause breast cancer and cervical cancer. And since I've started juicing, I no longer need the man-made hormones because the endocannabinoid system is getting healthy enough to where it's producing and helping my hormones to where I'm a complete person again.
Wow.
It has given me my life back.
You know what? What you just said is just something that I've heard people say over the years with different conditions. I've had, I've heard people, veterans say that, this gave me my life back. And I've heard kids, sons and daughters of veterans say, you know what? I've got my dad back now. I got my mom back now. So I understand that because a lot of these conditions just change someone's personality and so forth. So it's amazing what cannabis can do. So, Ms. Teddi, I want to thank you very much for giving our audience your experience with raw cannabis, and I hope that as legalization happens and more states get medical, that dispensaries will maybe grow X amount of plants and just it's some of the real best medicine. So they should put aside a couple of plants that they can just use for juicing because patients really need this medicine. The problem is they don't make as much money on that as they would on just selling it for bud, and that seems to be the bad attitude that some dispensaries have. So, Ms. Teddi, thank you very much. I appreciate your time today. I know it was a little tough for us to get hooked up to do this, but thanks a lot. I really appreciate what we did today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. We'll be right back after this.
I walked into the party, I seen some I never saw. Everybody was moving, grooving, girls, they were dancing on the bar. Now this wasn't no ordinary dance. Hey man, why is everybody swimming in a trance? I couldn't figure it out like your grandpa's riddle. I asked them what they doing and they said, Juicy Wiggle. Now move your hips and dance like fish. Now I done just lost my mind. All those people wiggling they stuff. Hey man, you gonna do the dance? Man, turn down for what? Give me a shot. Another shot. Y'all ain't ready for me to show you what I got. Then my body froze up. It was getting to my head. What if I can't do it? Then everybody said, can't you see? Can't you see? Can't you see? Can't you see? Two girls are shaking it. I jumped in the middle. I asked them what we doing and they said, Juicy Wiggle. Right about now, we really gonna have some fun. Oh yeah? Well, I'm talking about taking an ivory. But first, I need some 151 in a match. It's time to light it up. Let's go now. Can't you see? Can't you see? Can't you see? Can't you see? So when the beat drops, everybody Juicy Wiggle. Juicy Wiggle. Yeah, baby.
The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana. Radio. Radio. Show.
Thank you, Ms. Teddi, for telling us about juicing. We're going to have more guests on to talk about their experiences with Cannabis Raw, CannaRaw, and how it's working for them. I also want to thank my two radio mentors, both with the initials HS. Thank you for your inspiration. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, if you have an idea, a product that you would like to talk about, a website that's helping people, write us at info@mmjradio.com. Again, that's info@mmjradio.com. Let's see what else is happening. If you'd like to hear some old shows, this is our 7th season. You can go to mmjradio.com. My YouTube channel is LSLove88. On SoundCloud, it's MMJ Radio. On Spreaker, it's MMJ Radio. Watch us on CannabisTube.net. Also on Spreaker on the Time for Hemp Global Broadcasting Network. Also Time for Hemp on their iHeart Radio channel. On Now TV, channel 937. Also on 420radio.org and the Pothead Universe Radio. More exciting places to listen to us and watch us coming soon.
Shalom.